Bankable. I'm Doreen Abisundra, your host and a proponent of innovative technology and financing solutions for AI infrastructure, decarbonization, and energy security. This is the first Bankable podcast to showcase a use for new nuclear. Today, we meet a technology integrator aiming to produce sustainable fuels for hard-to-decarbonize industries, including aviation and maritime. Why the interest? Well, in addition to the International Civil Aviation Organization's global aspiration to reduce CO2 emissions in international aviation by 5% by 2030, the United Kingdom has, as of 2025, mandated that 2% of total UK jet fuel is decarbonised, increasing linearly to 10% in 2030 and 22% in 2040. In a similar vein, the ReFuelEU Aviation Regulation starts with 2% decarbonisation in 2025, increasing to 70% in 2050. And as of April 11th this year, the International Maritime Organization approved a draft framework aimed at achieving net zero emissions in the shipping industry by 2050. Hence, it seems vital to showcase CNF and its founders as a sustainable fuels pioneer. Lovely to see you both, Sophie and Alistair. We're here with Carbon Neutral Fuels and on our inaugural podcast for new nuclear. And I can't wait for everyone to hear a little bit about you guys individually and as a company, and to showcase what you guys are doing in nuclear. So Sophie, tell us a little bit about you first.
Well, firstly, thank you for having us on. My name is Sophie and I'm a co-founder at Carbon Neutral Fuels. And the brief background to CNF is that we are designing a power-to-liquid e-fuels facility capable of producing 25,000 tonnes per year of sustainable aviation fuel. And the way that we do that is we incorporate direct air capture technology and biogenic CO2. We then use solid oxide electrolysis technology to extract an oxygen from each of those molecules before combining them in a Fischer-Tropsch process to ultimately output power-to-liquid sustainable aviation fuel.
Fantastic, Sophie. And Alistair, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Alistair, one of the co-founders of Carbon Neutral Fuels, and I could give you a bit of a background to how Sophie and I met, actually, because Sophie and I met at COP26 in Glasgow in 2021, and we were part of the Net Zero Needs Nuclear campaign, which was spearheaded by the Nuclear Institute. And I approached Sophie about starting an e-fuels company, and for the past 2.5 years, we've been working at getting CNF off the ground.
That's super. So tell us, what is that link between CNF and new nuclear?
Sure. So we're incredibly excited about the prospect of small modular reactors and advanced reactors to drive down the cost and availability of low carbon electricity, because the e-fuels process that we're following basically converts electrical potential energy into stored chemical potential energy. And so that cost and availability of electricity is key to having a cheap and a highly available product.
I suppose I would just say that we're really excited about the prospect of new nuclear in the UK because it's such a fertile ground. There are so many businesses popping up all over the place that really care about wanting to create that environmental impact in terms of providing low carbon electrons, and processes like ours really rely on that. And so the ability to develop that market in the UK is something that we're really behind.
All right. Now, obviously, being a financial consultant, I have to talk to you about financing. So the question to you is, maybe tell us a little bit about your financing journey. What have you raised? What more do you need? And where do you see that financing conversation going?
Yes, that's absolutely a big part of these big infrastructure projects. So at Carbon Neutral Fuels, we started in 2022, and since then we've taken on a range of financing options. So we've got equity funding, we've taken on some grant funding from the Department for Transport's Advanced Fuels Fund, and we recently closed a crowdfund campaign. And I think that was the one that really most excited me, because it was an opportunity to go out to the public and say, this is what we're up to, really get on board with the project. And we've had some great feedback off the back of that. And obviously it's helped us grow our brand and our presence in the community. And in terms of where we want to go next, These are large infrastructure projects, therefore they require vast amounts of money. The strategy that we've taken on is that we have applied to window 3 of the Advanced Fuels Fund, and hopefully we'll find out about that positively in the next few months. And beyond them, we'll look to set up a special purpose vehicle for the project itself and take on equity funding through large infrastructure financiers that way.
Incredible. Maybe Alistair, do you want to tell us a little bit about that program that Sophie has just talked about, which you have applied to?
Yeah, so we've applied into Window 3 of the Department for Transport's Advanced Fuels Fund, and that's to fund our feed engineering, which is we've completed feasibility and pre-feed, and feed's the next stage. And once we've completed that, we'll go on to actually build the facility in 2027. So feed's key for us. And we'll find out in June if we've been successful, and fingers crossed.
Marvelous, fantastic. So that's a journey you're on, aren't you? So now maybe just tell us a little bit more about why CNF is bankable. That's the conversation that keeps coming up when I'm speaking with equity investors, with debt providers. The entire spectrum of financing always wants bankable products, bankable companies. So what makes CNF bankable?
It's a great question, and to be honest, we've kept this question at the front of our minds for the past sort of 2.5 years, really. And everything that we've been doing with our Advanced Fuels Fund funded project has been to make the project bankable. And some of the key insights that we got early on is that you don't want to take on too much technology risk. So initially we were looking at doing a small pilot scale, maybe working with some smaller providers. And that we determined it was going to be quite an expensive pilot, and it wouldn't necessarily be bankable, and the fuel that it would make would be too expensive for anyone to actually buy. And as part of our grant-funded project, we actually had feedback from our grant monitoring officer, who's obviously seen a lot of other SAF projects, and he gave us some hints to say, listen, you want to be thinking potentially about working with bigger partners. And so we took that feedback on board, and as a result of that, we partnered with some of the biggest technology providers in the industry, and that's really helped to boost us. And we also pivoted from a pilot scale to a you could call it either a large demonstrator or a small commercial, and that's given us a bankable project. So it's a very large infrastructure project. It's hundreds of millions, quite a bit bigger than the pilot we were looking at. But conversely, it's quite strange. Going bigger has actually made it more bankable.
Yep.
We've been speaking with the UK Wealth Fund, so formerly the UK Infrastructure Bank, and they've been advising us as well. And so they've been explaining the kind of things that we need to do to make the project bankable, and that's making sure that we get our cost estimate to plus or minus 20%. So we're looking at doing that, and that's informed our contracting strategy. And they've been giving us advice on other things that we can do to make it bankable as well.
Fantastic. So just picking up on that bankability question, what makes you confident that you can provide that return to the investor? Why should I give you any funding, knowing that the money is coming back?
In terms of confidence to the investor, I think I would just reiterate what Alistair has said, in that we've been so selective in the vendors that we've chosen to work with, and we've really considered everything through from reputation and ability to deliver right through to technology risk. We've also been quite keen to, whilst we are a technology integrator, work with vendors that have that innovative mindset at the forefront. So the technology stack that we've chosen does incorporate innovative elements, and I think that's really important to an investor, because you want to have confidence that the company that you've chosen to put your hard-earned money into is really striving to make the best technology selection that they possibly can. And so if I had the money that we're going to need, I would certainly be investing in us, for sure.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the revenue certainty mechanism from the UK government is going to be one of the key pieces of legislation that helps SAF take off in the UK, and that will provide a kind of guaranteed strike price for fuels, and we'll be looking to bid into that to help make the project bankable. And the idea is that we'll need to raise debt finance to construct the facility, We're speaking with the UK National Wealth Fund about loan guarantees and the products that they can offer to help make it bankable. And so really it's having a package of things that can help make it bankable.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a brilliant concept that you've come up with, and really appreciate you talking to us about it. Thank you, Sophie and Alistair.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bankable. For early access to energy transition pioneers and to learn how to structure the investment solutions described in this episode and throughout the series, subscribe to the podcast and get in contact at frescocleantech.solutions.